Moscow television tonight.
От Совета министров СССР. На Чернобыльской атомной электростанции произошла авария. Поврежден один из атомных реакторов.
For the first time ever, the Soviet Union admits it has had a nuclear accident, and it's clearly a major one.
Almost certainly the most severe accident that has ever taken place in the short history of civilian nuclear power.
Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. It seems virtually certain that what the Soviets have experienced is a nuclear meltdown. How serious and far-reaching would the effects be? We'll talk with Dr. James McKenzie, nuclear physicist for the Union of Concerned Scientists, and with Dr. Marvin Dickerson, who is tracking radioactivity in the atmosphere for the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
There is some information coming from the Soviet Union tonight, some but not much. United Press International in Moscow reached some residents of Kiev by phone. Kiev is roughly 60 miles from the site of today's nuclear accident. According to these reports, all bus service in the city of Kiev has been stopped so that the buses can be used to evacuate those in the disaster area. From the Hungarian capital of Budapest, there are reports of many injuries at the site of the accident. And from Montgomery, Alabama, where the Environmental Protection Agency has its radiation alert network, there is word that radiation from the Soviet accident could, within a week or so, make its way over the North Polar region to the western United States. The effect of such radiation, if it reaches the United States, would almost certainly be very minor indeed. We will talk about that later. But first, an update on what we know. Here's Nightline correspondent Jed Duval.
In the Soviet Union, there is rarely bad news. Airplane crashes are not ordinarily reported. Many of the Western world scientists are convinced that in 1957 or 58, a large nuclear accident occurred in the Ural Mountains, some 800 miles east of Moscow, in the vicinity of Kishtim. Radioactive contamination covered 40 to 400 square miles. The names of some 30 villages have since disappeared from Soviet maps. Evidence of a disaster of some sort is clear, but Soviet authorities have never acknowledged a problem. So it was extraordinary that Soviet TV news did report a big accident today. It came deep in the newscast, almost buried after production reports, after lists of worker awards, and this is what it said. An accident has occurred at the Chernobyl atomic power plant as one of the atomic reactors was damaged. Measures are being undertaken to eliminate the consequences of the accident. Aid is being given to those affected. A government commission has been set up. 4 ambiguous sentences that contain nothing about injuries or deaths. But that's 4 more sentences than the Soviets usually provide. So, Western experts conclude, it must be very bad indeed. The first the world knew of the accident was when Scandinavians noticed radiation in the air over the weekend just past. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to frighten.
I would speculate that it was very serious. And the reason for that is that they've observed radiation levels 10 times normal from Finland all the way down to Stockholm.
Something very big indeed. Many Western scientists have said this evening it could have been a complete meltdown.
The TMI accident was nothing compared with this. The TMI accident noted moderate exposures, really, like an X-ray within a mile or so.
That was 7 years ago this spring, and nobody was killed, and very little radiation got out despite all the alarm, because at 3 Mile Island and all other American nuclear power plants, there's a containment building, a short, squat silo made of very thick concrete with an awful lot of steel in it, an expensive addition to the plant, which is supposed to contain radiation if anything goes wrong. Most Soviet nuclear power plants do not have such containment structures. Are they necessary? This is what can happen, and apparently has happened in Russia, as described by correspondent Marshall Frady in an ABC News close-up last summer.
The worst that can happen involves a loss of cooling water around the fuel rods. Even if the plant operation is immediately shut down, the uncovered fuel rods would reach an extraordinary heat. soon melting themselves right through the reactor vessel, the beginning of a total meltdown. Ultra-hot radioactive material would drop to the floor of the chamber, burn through deep into the earth, possibly releasing enormous amounts of radiation. Radiation from any source can attack the thyroid, the skin, the lungs, the spleen, the liver, the kidneys, the bone, the muscle, the reproductive organs. Its effects, cancers, genetic mutations.
Very little radiation has been detected in Finland, Sweden, Denmark. It's a lot more than normal and alarming, but still not harmful to humans. However, close to the Soviet plant, it must be another story. The chief nuclear scientist for the Electric Power Research Institute in Palo Alto, California said tonight, if the radioactivity is a few millirents 700 miles away, I'd hate to be within 10 miles of the sun. What about the people who live near that plant? Chances are, whatever they know, it's by word of mouth only. Indeed, it is Budapest Radio in Hungary, which tonight reports injuries in Russia and says that the radiation leak occurred next to a reservoir which serves the large Soviet city of Kiev.
They have not had heavy regulation, the media pressure, the legal pressures that
nuclear energy in this country, because obviously opponents of nuclear energy are going to seize on this and say, aha, you see what can happen.
Yeah, I think it's really too early to tell, Ted. I think we need to make more of an assessment of the accident before we can, really say what the impact's going to be.
When do you think you're going to have your picture together?
We're hoping within a few days we're able to start to put quite a bit of the picture together. It depends on getting information, which is always a problem in a situation like this.
All right. Dr. Dickerson, Dr. McKenzie, Professor Goldman, Dimitri Simes, thank you very much indeed for joining us, gentlemen. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This